This is David Bedein. I'm the Bureau Chief of the Israel Resource News Agency and the Center for Near East Policy Research. Our agency conducts news investigations of the PLO, the Palestinian Authority, UNRWA, and various aspects of American-Israeli relations. We've been doing this for 25 years. Our agency accompanies journalists in Israel to help put out the news of what's really happening behind the scene in Israel. Our website is israelbehindthenews.com.
And what's the nature of your work that's different from the Israeli press office?
Well, the Israel government press office is a government press office. Governments are governments. The government cannot do what I do as an American citizen and my staff does. We come over here to the United States and we meet with constituents of Congress and then with staffers of Congress, and we show them what's really happening in the Palestinian Authority and UNRWA. We can do this in an open fashion, whereas a normal Israeli citizen could not. Certainly the Israeli government cannot, in a direct way, say, hey, we'd like to brief you in Congress to tell you what's really going on. That's what we do. And when I come to Los Angeles, California, I come to Los Angeles saying, we are going to make presentations, movies of the UNRWA facilities, where Arabs are kept in refugee camps under the premise and promise of right of return. We go to the PLO army in training, being trained by the American government. We film. We're raising money to film them, and then we present the film. We will present the films in Congress in January. That is our approach. No one else does that. There are agencies that record Palestinian radio, actually Palestinian TV, and things like that. That's not what we do. People doing that already, we don't have to step on their toes. Our issue is direct contact with UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Work Agency, with the Palestinian Authority, with the schools, which are jointly administered by the Palestinian Authority and UNRWA, and with the Palestinian Armed Forces, and with aid programs, which have been created for the Palestinian Authority for poor people, where the money somehow disappears.
Now you have an adversarial relationship, or at least the attitude towards UNRWA, as it seems. How do you get them to cooperate with you?
Well, first of all, our agency is a professional agency. We're not for anyone, we're not against anyone. We go and show the facts as they are. Now, the UNRWA leadership does not like our agency. However, when we send in a television crew or a reporter to UNRWA, they're simply asking the facts of what's going on. So sometimes UNRWA responds, and sometimes they don't. But generally they respond very well, because one of the principles of criminology is that someone who is involved in an indiscretion has no problem showing you what he's doing.
Doesn't Hamas have a problem with foreign journalists in general?
No. The Hamas and the Palestinian Authority feel that they get get the international support they get by currying favor with the mainstream media, and always providing material about, let's say, children casualties and things like this, and always providing material to try to present themselves as an underdog to the mainstream media. That's the way they work. So from their point of view, a television crew coming to film them, to film the Palestinian Authority, to film an UNRWA refugee situation, or to film poor people in the UNRWA camps, that for them is the way in which they raise their money and get support internationally.
But don't they recognize you as not part of the mainstream media who they can dupe? Do
you think they see me? The key point, there was a great organizer named Mao Zedong who said, and I don't think he was a rabbi, he was out there as a revolutionary, to melt amongst the masses is the key thing. So they don't necessarily see yours truly behind the camera. They see regular Western or Arab reporters. That's the way in which we work.
For people who aren't familiar with UNRWA, what's an overview of what their function is and what they run there?
Let's make it simple. The United Nations Relief and Work Agency, founded as the only refugee agency in the world to keep people as refugees in 1949. It was started 6 months before UNHCR, the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, was founded to try to get people settled as refugees. UNRWA perpetuates the war by keeping people in refugee camps, even the fourth generation of descendants of Arab refugees, keeping them in the camps under what premise? The premise and promise of the right of return. And it's reinforced every year at the United Nations, and supported enthusiastically by the Arab League, and funded by 38 nations around the world, Western democracies, who think they're helping poor people in a difficult situation.
How much of it do you think is being used as a tool, as a device against Israel?
UNRWA's purpose is to overthrow the state of Israel. UNRWA, by its nature of encouraging what they call the right of return, is encouraging the overthrow of the state of Israel. They do so by setting up a school system where the issue of the right of return is the focus of the school system. So it's not that they're only in active conflict, like shooting rockets from the UNRWA camps, which does happen, but the entire, when you walk into any UNRWA facility, the UNRWA facility is named for the places from where they came in 1948. Don't believe me. Look on the internet today, something called PalestineRemembered.com, and you'll see how every place that was lost in 48 is put on there so that the children, it's in English and in Arabic, so that children learning in the UNRWA schools will be able to identify the places they came from in 48. Now
just the West Bank places they came from?
Not at all the West Bank, not at all Gaza, but within Israel itself. The 531 neighborhoods and Arab neighborhoods and Arab villages from where they came in 1948 are clearly delineated. Now, we interviewed the head of the PLO Right of Return Committee who works with UNRWA. And he said to us, we asked him, why are you doing this? Why are you taking people on tours to see their places they lost in 48? He said, well, so we can take our homes back. So the question was, well, there's people living there. And his answer was, they'll have to leave. And what if they don't leave? And the PLO Right of Return spokesman said, well, then we'll have to kill them, and international law will be on our side. And how do you like your coffee? Very natural, very natural, matter of fact. We kill them because they're in our way. In the same way that there's 14 school books produced by the Palestinian Authority, used by UNRWA, even though UNRWA's theme is peace begins here, but 14 school books where the children are taught explicitly to kill Jews. Now that's the kind of thing that is not acceptable. This is not a pro-Israel or anti-Israel issue. This is an issue of not only journalistic integrity, but education integrity. And it protects the children have a right, Arab children have a right to be protected from a system that's manipulating them to kill or to be killed. The kids learn songs and poems about shahidim. What are shahidim? Martyrs, those who kill Jews and are killed in the process.
Suicide killers.
Well, we call them homicide killers.
But they kill themselves in the process.
Oh, yes, they kill themselves.
Like kamikazes.
It's the kamikaze situation, except it's not limited to a few fanatics. It's an entire society, entire school system, based on murdering and dying in the process. Murdering Jews and dying in the process. UNRWA continues the 1948 war that was declared by the Arab League, and working together with the PLO, started in 1964 by the Arab League, to continue the war, to perpetuate refugeehood. Perpetuating refugeehood is a threat not only to the people in the refugee camps, but to all of the people in Israel. There's 5 million Arabs living in or contiguous to the UNRWA camps, and another 3 million around the world with UNRWA cards, enabling them to go back to where they came from. And the reason why, PalestineRemembered.com, we interviewed the person who created the website and for the Palestinian Authority. Why do you put it out in English also? He said, because many of our Palestinians abroad do not read Arabic. So this way it's a more comfortable situation to have a website and names of Arab villages that they claim, because they call all these Israeli cities in Netanya, everywhere else, as illegal settlements, so they can easily identify them. So it's appropriate, you see. It's user-friendly.
Are Palestinian descendants living amongst us in the West with these UNRWA cards?
Absolutely. And when our agency made a visit to the Right of Return Center in London, we attended a seminar. We did it kind of more or less undercover. They didn't know where we were from. In point of view, and did we ever? We witnessed several hundred pupils and their parents, Arab pupils and their parents, sitting in a session at the Right of Return Center in London, where they were being instructed on how to take back their homes in 48.
To what extent does this influence the media's narrative on the Palestinian arguments?
What the media thinks, because of manipulation, is that you have thousands and thousands of Arabs living in refugee camps, and Israel's keeping them in those camps, and Israel is oppressing them, Israel depriving them of their human rights by keeping them in refugee camps rather than resettling them. The media get only part of the story, because the Arabs are smart enough to when you show a reporter people in difficult circumstances or children who are walking around half naked who come there to meet the press, The press often don't ask in-depth questions like, why are you here? The press can go to a thriving Arab city in Gaza or in Judea, Samaria, an thriving Arab city, but while they're there, the Arab media professionals will then take them to a refugee camp and say, this is the whole story here. Don't only talk about the wealthy Arabs. Now, one of the projects we have working with Arabs is we want to be able to produce a new movie about wealth and prosperity in the UNRWA camps, so that everyone will see, because they're very proud of their wealth and prosperity. The people who've been in camps and don't have to pay rent and don't have to pay for food, don't have, for food supplements, they don't have to pay for housing, they don't have to pay for education. And so they have extra money sitting around.
So how would that work?
Very simple. We find someone in the United States or wherever to underwrite the cost of a film. We send in a film crew, an Arab film crew, who will film the luxury housing in refugee camps, which of course contrast what the PLO media professionals will put in front of the media. The key thing is to work with the mainstream media with the tools that are available.
Do you think the reporters in the mainstream media are being led by a narrative that their news directors back in London, Paris, and New York are expecting them to report with?
The media, I've been working with the media for 25 years, since professionally. Actually 26 years, since October 1986. We moved into the press center on December 1, 87, our agency, Israel Resource News Agency, working with the Center for Near East Policy Research. Our impression of the media is they have no idea what's going on, but they're being manipulated to think in a certain direction. There is no such thing as the Arab narrative being accepted by the foreign media. What you have here are morsels being brought to them by PLO media professionals, an organization known as PASSIA, P-A-S-S-I-A, the Palestine Academic Center for Academic Affairs, financed by the United States government. We revealed that many years ago. The U.S. government under Clinton financed it in order to work with the media, the mainstream media, to change their opinion of the Arab situation.
So with PASSIA being funded by the U.S. government, essentially
they
US
were
taxpayer.
funded. We were able to stop the funding, but again, it's very hard to put toothpaste back in the tube. The effectiveness of the Clinton administration's manipulation of the media, funding Arab media professionals, it stopped in 2003, 2004, but the damage was done. So over a period of 15 years, the Arab media professionals did a very solid job, also providing stringers for the foreign media until it was stopped.
Fixers?
Fixers and all that, sure.
And what is a fixer?
A fixer is someone who arranges news stories for the media. Now, the fact that they were being paid by the PLO meant that the foreign journalists could pay them a little bit less. So that it was a perfect deal. You have someone who's offering you services at $50 a day, but he's really earning $350 a day. He takes the other $300 from the funds that were created by the American government and other governments to subsidize the fixers and the stringers.
Much of the international dialogue or narrative from the Palestinian perspective or of the Palestinian situation is that the Palestinians are not only occupied, but they're suffering from Israeli unethicalities or immoralities in terms of oppression and raids and violence and even bulldozing houses immorally. And there's very little a contradiction or even response from the Israeli side
right.
on that subject. What's the veracity of these Palestinian allegations?
Here's what happens. Our colleagues in Palestinian Arab media work will focus on a Israeli, let's say, response to mortar attacks from Gaza. And they'll run to the scene and film the dead Arabs and put out the bodies of the dead Arabs, especially if there's dead Arab children. And this happened also during the Intifada. A great article written by Daoud Kutab, who at the time was Arafat's foreign media advisor, called Profile of the Stone Throwers, advised that they should always put stone throwers at the front of riots so as to sustain casualties. By sustaining casualties, they're able to show dead Arab children bodies. And by showing that to the media, when you have a media who don't have much background, they see children being killed and they don't know enough about the, for example, the mortar attacks from Gaza into Israel, because the Israeli government prefers not to make that a high priority item. The priority item for the Israeli government is bringing in 4 million tourists, not to say, hey, come to where the missiles are. So as a result of the Israeli government downplaying the missile story, if you look at the Sderot Media Center website, as SderotMedia.com, you'll see in the corner of the how many missiles have fallen on Israel. How many people know that 29,000 missile attacks occurred in the past 11 years on southern Israel? Now, the fact that exactly 32 people were killed means that, you know, there's not a lot of, in a sense, blood to go around. And as a matter of fact, we know that children in Sderot and the other places along the Gaza border, when an attack comes in, they have between 15 and 30 seconds to get into shelters. Whereas in Gaza, when Israel's firing back, children are told to get on top of the roofs to sustain casualties.
And they're told by whom?
By the Arab leaders and with loudspeakers. The Western mind cannot, and certainly the Jewish mind, cannot perceive or conceptualize the idea that people would tell their children to go onto roofs in order to be killed. That's not something that the Western mind can understand.
But it isn't the parents who are doing it, it's essentially the politicians.
It doesn't matter. Unfortunately, our news agency has produced a number of news stories where we interview parents whose children had died as a result of throwing a Molotov cocktail and being fired at and things like this. And I've had numerous cases where Arab mothers said how proud they were that they sent their children to die as shahidim, as martyrs. As a matter of fact, we produced a story for NBC where the mother of a Jewish boy who was killed because he went onto a bus to try to save a mother and her 3 children, and he died of asphyxiation a few weeks later. And she was with an Arab mother whose son was killed because he threw a Molotov cocktail and the Israeli army fired on him. And the Israeli mother was crying the whole time, and the Israeli mother the Arab mother was proud and delightful, and she said she has candies in her pocket to throw at her son in the Garden of Eden. And the Israeli mother talked to the Arab mother and said, "Please cry, please show that you're upset." And the Arab mother wouldn't do so. It's a difference of mentality.
If the Palestinian population, the public, has been so led to believe that they're on a quest to right an injustice from the Zionist occupation or a Zionist usurpation of the Palestinian lands, how could the establishment of a Palestinian state, which is the political PC expectation that would be the solution for peace for both peoples, how could such a Palestinian state be limited to only serving itself and not trying to reclaim and redeem those formerly Arab occupied cities like Jaffa and Akko and
Netanya, Khalid, which is half of Netanya, was an Arab village. Understand one thing: the PLO, working with Hamas, working with all of the elements of the PLO, who now form the Nation Palestinian Authority, do not hide the fact that the number one principle of the Palestinian Authority in wanting to establish a state is what's called the right of return, to take back all of the land of Israel, to take back all of Palestine. They do not hide it for 1 minute. However, Abbas, advised by Western public relations officials, goes and speaks on Israel television, saying all we want is West Bank and Gaza, and they don't ask him further. As I did when I interviewed Arafat, I said, "Mr. Arafat," he called me in for a meeting because our agency had been monitoring him, and he says, "David, I want you to know we're for peace." I said, "Mr. Arafat, are you willing to say that in the Arabic language to your own people on your own radio station?" He changed the subject. I went back 3 times in a 3-hour interview, asked him the same question. He avoided the answer. Now understand, in interpersonal relations and international relations, what's important is not what a leader says to you, but what that leader says to his own people. December 8th, 1993, our agency interviewed the person who put together the Oslo process in the first place, Dr. Yossi Beilin. And he said to us, the first thing the Palestinian Authority would do when it would be established in May 1994 would be to take down the UNRWA camps and to renounce the right of return. Except the first thing the Palestinian Authority did upon its establishment in May 1994 was to reinforce the UNRWA and to make their first principle, right of return, to take back all of Palestine. Getting people to report that was very difficult because it did not jive with what they thought. I'm talking about in the West and in the Jewish community.
How could you then convey to Westerners and particularly Jews who were led largely by their communal leaders, even their Reform and conservative rabbis, that Israel's security would come as a product of establishing a Palestinian sovereignty?
Well, we have one ally in conveying the truth. That's the Arabs themselves. The Arabs are willing at all times to say exactly what they want. The key thing is to make sure that the Jews see it through the mainstream media, and it can be done. We did it we succeeded against all odds in getting the Arafat videos onto the mainstream media 15 years ago. And we'll do it again. We did it by showing it in the U.S. Congress on September 21st, 1995. The response of Yitzhak Rabin was to call me his greatest pain in the tuchus, which I took as a great compliment, because we showed that Mr. Rabin and Mr. Peres were lying. We would have no problem doing that with any Israeli leader or Jewish leader who dares to say that the function of the Palestinian Authority and the PLO is to take back the West Bank and Gaza. It is a lie. I don't want to say any other word but lie. And we can get people to believe it because the Arabs, someone challenged us and said, oh, your videos of Arafat are forged. So we sent a journalist to ask Arafat in front of Peres. He said, every video of what I've said is not only true, but authentic, because I want people to know what I'm saying to the Arab people. You see, the Western mind doesn't work like the Jewish mind. They don't work according to tactics.
You mean like the Arab mind? The Western mind doesn't work like the Arab mind.
No, but the Arab mind, the Western mind doesn't work like the Jewish mind.
Oh.
The Jewish mind says, I want to see what's really going on. I want to go inside. I'm sitting right now in front of Talmud. I have learned the Talmud for the last 27 years. Every day I learn a page of Talmud. The Jewish mind says, what's really going on? They put the thumb up in the air and say, what's really going on behind the scenes? The Western mind says, hey, if you said something to me, it's got to be real. But the Jewish mind is very different. And getting people to think like Jews and not like Westerners is the key issue here.
How are the Arabs thinking?
The Arabs are thinking they have the perfect situation. They think they wake up every morning and say, boy, what a bunch of dumb Jews. They laugh at the Jews. Why? Every morning they say, gee, look how much we've accomplished. We have our own army now. We have our own school system. We have red signs in front of every Arab village saying, don't come in here, Jews, because otherwise we'll kill you. And we get away with it. And we're making big money from Israel. And we're making big money from UNRWA. There's food distributions coming in from UNRWA and to $1.2 billion of a budget for which UNRWA has. No accountability. $13 million that comes into a Brinks truck every month to the border of Gaza, comes in cash, all over.
How large a recipient of humanitarian aid are the Palestinians?
It's tremendous. I don't have the figures in front of me because I'm not at my desk in Jerusalem. But I can tell you, when you have UNRWA receiving $1.2 billion and that's besides their special projects that they raise money for. We're talking about a society which is overwhelmed with international aid, which is why they have so much cash to buy products.
And how much of that money actually gets absconded through corruption?
Well, they don't see it as corruption. They see it as a legitimate to take it and do what they want with it.
What can Americans do now that the pro-Palestinian state Obama administration has been reelected? What can be done to put a reality check in there until this generation of Palestinians has really lost this brainwashing of conquering Israel?
The Obama administration is not a monolithic entity. Obama's ambassador to Israel, Ambassador Daniel Shapiro, is extremely sensitive to issues of incitement. Most of the Democratic liberals in Congress are very sensitive to issues of incitement. We have been, our agency, working with Congressman Brad Sherman and a number of other congressmen, we've challenged the issue of the incitement in the Palestinian schools. What we need is for constituents, for voters, to be active and not sit back and kvetch and kvel, oh, gewalt. Start with the gewalt. Start making demands that condition aid to the Palestinian Authority and to UNRWA on a cessation of your school books, which inculcate Arabs to conquer all of Palestine.
But it's pervasive through the whole society. It's on the television and the newspaper.
So fine. So what? The television is supported by PBC TV and radio. PBC TV and radio gets its funding from the Palestinian Authority. Hello, good morning, Vietnam. We have to do something to stop that. Every constituent in the United States, liberal, conservative, Jew or Gentile, can question it, not on the basis of pro-Israel, anti-Israel, on the basis of integrity. Who ever heard of supporting a school system where children are taught to kill? Who ever heard of a school system where children are taught to overthrow a neighboring state? Sorry, Raise these questions. And if you don't raise these questions, you are not doing your job as a citizen. As a citizen of the United States or wherever, any country which is aiding the Palestinian Authority or aiding UNRWA, raise questions. And by raising questions of Congress, of congressional committees, and parliamentary committees in other countries, you will have a great effect. That's it. What they don't want you to do is to raise questions. What they do want you to do is to kvetch about it to your friends and send emails to your friends.
But how much can Congress do with this?
Congress oversees. Hello? The ABC of American democracy is checks and balances. The House Foreign Relations Committee, their Middle East subcommittee, has precise oversight responsibilities over U.S. Foreign policy. If you don't use it, you lose it. Simple. If you don't use it, you lose it.
How can you expect the American or Western publics to be more pro-Zionist than the Israeli?
Are we talking about pro-Zionism
government?
or are we talking about integrity? The Israeli government made a decision in March 2011 to not allow aid to the Palestinian Authority, to UNRWA, so long as they continue their incitement. A decision of the government of Israel. Clear.
So they've stopped?
They haven't stopped anything.
I mean, the Israelis, have they stopped giving money to the
Israeli government, first of all, doesn't give a lot, but there's under pressure to give you what they call humanitarian aid. Well, that can be challenged too. But this has to be, what we're talking about is a universal challenge on issues of integrity, not pro-Israel or anti-Israel, pro-Arab or anti-Israel. We're talking about basic issues of integrity. Question. And by raising those questions, you're guaranteed to get a response. If you don't raise the questions, nothing will happen. If you send a letter to a Congressman Brad Sherman, and reinforce the idea that the school book should be changed. By the way, he was assured by Abbas and others in the PA that it would be changed. It was a great lie. But many Jewish organizations believe the lie. Your job is to question and say, can we have documentation of such? Do your homework.
How can the public support your initiative?
We have a website, IsraelBehindTheNews.com, and when you click onto it, you'll see a place which says donations, and you give all the details are right there. IsraelBehindTheNews.com, look where it says donations, and also you can invite us to send you speakers who know what's going on, who know Arabic. The expression we like to use is, let my people know. People don't know. And that's the issue.